Hi everyone, in this tutorial we'll be creating a real-time desktop widget using JavaFX programming language. As you can see, we are showing the COVID-19 statistics. You can see the COVID cases for the whole world, and we can see the COVID cases for a given country, and the country is configured from a settings file. You can change it to any country. And regarding the behavior of the widget, it behaves just like any other widget you see in Windows or Linux or Android. You can drag and move it across the screen, and when you open a new window, it won't obstruct with those windows. It will always stay in the background, so it will act as a pure widget. And regarding the option, you have an option to refresh it immediately, manually, and immediately. If you click on the refresh now button, the data will be immediately refreshed. You can also configure for automatic refresh or self refresh after some duration. Currently it is set to 3000 seconds, so in every 3000 seconds it will refresh automatically. And regarding the country, currently it is set to Canada. Let me show you how to change it. If you want to set it to India, I am from India, you can set the country name here. And regarding the country code, this doesn't have any big purpose. It is just to display the country code below the globe icon. So you can give any identifier here. For India, I am giving IN. And in order to get that change effective, you have to exit the application and run the application just once more. I am running from command line because it is built using Gradle distribution plugin. So we will talk about it in detail in the upcoming section. So as you can see right now, the country has been changed to India, and as of today we have around 7,600 total cases, and that is being shown here. We'll be developing this application in a step-by-step fashion, so let's start it. Now, regarding the application modules, there will be mainly 4 modules for this application. The first one and the foremost one is definitely getting the data through an API. There is a COVID-19 API that allows to fetch data through HTTP GET request, so we can get data that way. And the second one is designing and implementing the GUI, the graphical user interface for our widget. It is a little bit different from what we do usually for applications, because it doesn't have any decoration like minimize, close buttons. It needs to have drag and drop support. So that is an important module as well. And the third one is scheduled auto refresh. We have to auto refresh the data in certain duration. As you have seen the before, like it was set to 3000 seconds. So we need a scheduler that schedules the refresh operation. And the last one is managing user settings. We need to help the user, or we need to let the user to change the country as well as the refresh interval. So that part will be handled by the fourth module, user settings management. And regarding the language, we'll be using JavaFX version 14 on top of Java 14. Now let us start coding. So the first thing that we are going to do is create a fresh JavaFX project using IntelliJ and Gradle build system. Regarding creating a new project in JavaFX 14 with IntelliJ and Gradle, I have already created a dedicated tutorial for that. If you are interested, or if you don't know how to do that already, please go to my YouTube channel and watch this video. I will leave a link to this video in the description as well. Regarding the API, this is the API that we are going to use to get the data regarding the COVID-19. We'll be using this one, this GET request, as well as the third one. So what this will give, the first one will give is the total number of cases, the worldwide statistics, and the third one will give us for a given country. For example, if I want data from Canada, then I can input Canada there and it will return the data in a JSON format. So we'll be using this API and we'll be using JavaFX. So let us start coding. I'm going to create a new project. So I'll be using Gradle build system. I'll be using Java project, and I want to use Java version 14. Okay, going next, and here I have to give a project name. Let me name the project as COVID Widget FX. Okay, that will create the project, and IntelliJ already provided the build.gradle file, and the project structure is ready. In the backend, the Gradle build, the first ever build of our project, is happening. So here the first thing that we have to do is to add the JavaFX plugin. I have, as I said before, explained all this in the JavaFX 14 introduction video. But even if you haven't seen that, and if you had some experience in Gradle, then this will be easy. First, you have to add these two plugins, application and JavaFX plugins. So I'm going to add that to the build.gradle file. Then we have to provide the JavaFX module information along with its version. So here I am specifying that I require JavaFX version 14. And regarding the modules, of course, I need JavaFX controls, I need JavaFX.base, I need JavaFX.fxml, because I will be using fxml for designing purposes, GUI designing, then JavaFX.graphics, just to be safe. I'm not sure whether I will be using this module, but let us just add it anyway. Okay, now I have added the Java plugin, application plugin, and the JavaFX plugin. So far so good. Now we can create our first ever Java class, the main class in our project. So I'm going to create a package. Let me name it as com.genuinecoder. Then here I'm going to create the main class. So let me name it as launch. So that will be our first class. And in order to run the project, we have to specify the main class name. So I'm going to set the main class name as com.genuinecoder.launch. So that's about the basic Gradle setup here. Now we need to build the Gradle project. So let me name it as, let me go to the COVID widget FX. Then in the task build, here you can choose the build. So that will be, build the project. Okay, the build is successful, build has been completed. So far so good. Now here we can start writing our first JavaFX main class, launch extends application class. So this is JavaFX.application similar to all JavaFX projects. Then here we will get the primary stage. Currently in this chapter we are not doing the GUI module. We will be doing the server data fetch API, but for now let us just create a sample stage. So for that I'm going to create a scene. So scene equals new scene, and in the scene section I can give anything. So I'm just gonna give a stack pane with a label, new label, JavaFX. Then that is enough. We just have to provide the size. For now let us just give it as a 200 by 200. Then we will set the primary stage dot set scene as the scene, and we simply show the primary stage. Okay, now to make sure that the application is running fine, let us just run the application. For running it for the first time, you have to go to the Gradle tasks, and there will be application plugin, and select the run task. That will create that will run our application. So as you can see, the application is working fine. So the project initial configuration level is completed. Now let us talk about getting the data from the COVID-19 API. So as I have said before, we'll be using this API, and you can see that when we do a HTTP request at this URL, we are getting this response. So as a library for getting this data, in order to get this data, we are going to use a library called retrofit. It is very easy to use, that's why I prefer it. So we'll be using retrofit library. This is the documentation and information about the project. First we have to include that library into our project. In order to do that, we have to add this string to our Gradle. So going back to build.gradle, we are going to include that library. In order to add that library, I have to add compile and the library name along with the version. So it will download and include this retrofit library. Along with the retrofit library, we need one more dependent library from retrofit developer itself, that is called converter JSON. What this will do is it will help us to convert JSON strings to Java object. For example, if you look at here, this is a JSON string. Using this library converter JSON, we can convert that JSON string into Java, plain old Java objects, POJO object. We will see that in detail in the upcoming section. Okay, now what we have to do is to go ahead and create that service that fetch data from the API. So in order to do that, let me create a new package. So it is going to be data fetch. Inside data fetch, I am going to write a service class called data provider service. This class will be responsible for everything related to the network operation. It will fetch data from online server, convert it into Java object and give us back. For now, let me just mark the return type as void, but that is not what we want. We need the actual data returned. But as we complete this function, we will change that signature. So public void get data. And what I will do is I will accept the country name that I want to check. I want to get data. So here, let me name it as country name. This country name is used to fetch the data for that given country. For example, here currently it is set to India, so the country name will be India, and we will pass that information to the API. In order to use retrofit, first you have to create an instance of retrofit. So retrofit equals, we have to make use of retrofit builder. So retrofit.builder. Then we have to specify a base URL that is mandatory for retrofit as far as I know. So the base URL is simple. Here we can use the base URL as https coronavirus19 API herokuapp.com. So I'm going to give that as my base URL, and then we just have to call the build function. So what this will do is it will create a retrofit instance with a base URL. We have to add one more configuration here. I told you, right, like we can convert the JSON back to POJO, JSON string to POJO using this library. In order to attach this library to the retrofit instance, we have to add a converter factory. So add converter factory, and here we have to provide JSON converter factory dot create. So it will help us converting JSON string to Java object. So far, now we have the retrofit object. Now what we need is an API interface. Let me just create an interface. This interface will be used to define what are the APIs that we are going to use. So let me name it as COVID API. Now we have an interface, and here I am going to provide the API that I am going to use. I need a get API. So this get API will be used for getting data of all world. For example, when we query this URL, we will get the virus information for the whole world. So let us put that here, HTTPS, and here we have to provide call. It will be a callback with a JSON object and get world, what name we can call it, get global data. So it will return the coronavirus information for the whole world. I hope you understood this part. Okay, now what we have to do is we need one more API that is for a given country. So in order to get the data for a given country, that will be another get request, and here the URL is different. The URL is like this one, herokuapp coronavirus 19 herokuapp up to the country section here. And then what we have to do is to put it like this. Okay, now after this slash we need to provide the country name like India, Canada. So here I am going to mention it as a variable, so it will be replaced while making the request. I can tell the retrofit compiler to replace that country name with the value given to the function. So here I specify that the country name need to be replaced with the string country name parameter that we are going to provide later. Okay, what will happen here is this variable will be taken and this section will be replaced with this variable's value. So far so good, we have the COVID-19 API defined. Now we have to make use of that API. So here what I'm going to do is retrofit.create, and I can pass the COVID API interface here and it will create an object for me. So here I have the COVID API. Now the next step is to simply call the API function. So get COVID API get global data. I forgot to change the function name here. So this will be get country data. The above one is for getting the whole global data and this one is for getting the country data. Okay, so get global data, and it will be a callback. It will be asynchronous operation because network operation can take a lot of time based on the network activity. So it is always a callback. The way we use this library is we will enqueue a request. We are queuing a request and we will get a callback from that. So I have a callback of JSON object here. And here we will get a response, and this is the response that we have. Now, in order to test this API working, let us just print the response that we are receiving. So it will be a response. So response dot body. So what should happen here is we should get this string in our system.out.println console while we run this application. Okay, so far country name is not used because we haven't reached using that API yet. In order to test this program, let me add this new data provider service dot get data, and here even though it is not relevant, I am just giving India here. Let me run the program right now. For that, go into the top section, run, and I am choosing run. Okay, now the JavaFX is displayed, and as you can see, we are getting the coronavirus result for the whole world. So that is very good. We got the first data. Now what we have to do is to convert this into a POJO class. In order to convert this into a POJO class, we can make use of multiple online services. Like if you search for JSON to POJO, there are many services. First one is JSON schema to POJO. I'm not sure whether this will work. It had some problems yesterday. Let me just try it. Okay, I think it is still not working, so no problem. We have so many other services. Let us make use of this one. So you just simply have to paste your JSON code there and press submit, and it will create a POJO class for you. So here it is called my POJO. I need to make some changes here. So what I'm going to do is I am going to create a package here, model, and then going to create a Java class there. Here I am going to name it as what name can we give? Global data. So it is global coronavirus data, and it has 3 fields. If you look closely, it is giving it a string. String is fine, but the actual data can be converted into a long number itself because they are not strings, they are numbers. So instead of string, I am simply going to use long. And in order to generate the getter and setter, I am going to press Alt Insert button in my Windows system. So okay, Alt Insert, and here you can see the getter and setter, and I am going to create some getter and setter for this one. Okay, so far so good. Let me change okay, now I have the model data. What I can do here is I can simply change the JSON object with this object, global data object. So coming back to the COVID API, here the global data, instead of JSON object, I can give it as global data. Here is where the converted JSON is coming into work. What it is doing is it is converting that JSON data automatically into the Java POJO object. Now if we go to the data provider service, there will be some error because the API signature has been changed, so we have to make the changes here also. So instead of JSON object, we are receiving global data and global data. Okay, now when we print the object, we should get the global data object. So in order to make things better, let me create a toString method. Insert code completion. No, let me press Control Insert. When you press Control Insert, there is a toString function, and you can select that one. Okay, that will automatically generate its toString function for the class using its members. Okay, now it is time to run our program once more. So let me close it and run once again. And what we should see is we should get our object. You can see that we got the global data object with the 3 values there. So far so good. Our API is working really fine. Now what we have to do is to change the structure for this one. So if you look at the country data, let us go ahead and take a look at the Canada data. This is also a JSON. We have to convert this into a Java POJO. So I am making use of the same tool that I have used before, submitting it, and it created another my POJO for me. I am just copying the fields, coming back to IntelliJ, and here I am going to name it as country data. And here now I have country data. I simply have to paste it, and here again they made a mistake of using string value where they could have used long. So let me replace these strings with long, except for the string country, because country name is definitely a string, so we don't want to make that into a long value and cause problems. Okay, now what we need is we need a getter and setter. Yes, and what we also need is a toString function. So Control Insert toString, and I am creating a string for everyone. So far so good. We got the country data model. We are going to COVID API class, and instead of receiving a JSON object, we are going to receive a country data object. Again, the JSON converter is doing the heavy work for us. It is converting the JSON string into a Java POJO. Okay, now coming back here, we have to make one more request. So COVID API dot get country data. Here I'm going to give the country name I received in the parameter here, parameter. So we'll do that, and then in query request we listen for the callback, and when we get the callback we can print that response with the response.body. So that's about the data fetching part. Now if we rerun the program, we should get 2 lines of output. That will be one for the global data and one for the country India. See, we are getting the data very nice. Okay, so that section, the data fetching section, is over. Now the requirement is to return this data. Whenever someone calls this function, we have to give the value back to that function. So in order to return we can't simply return 2 values in a function, right? So I am going to create a new wrapper class. So I'm going to name it as GUI COVID data model. Let us simply name it as COVID data model, and the data model contains 2 values, one global data and one country data. Then again we need a constructor for this. We also need a getter. Like we don't want to set the value, but we need to access the value later from other functions. So this is our model. Okay, coming back to the data provider service, what we need is to return a new COVID data model, and here we have to provide our 2 values, global data and country data. So the next task is to get this response.body synchronously to here. For that, what I'm going to use is I'm going to use Java's nice and easy completable feature. So it is an asynchronous callback technique. Explaining this in detail is not in the scope of this tutorial. So I recommend you, if you don't know this already, I recommend you to check some tutorials. What this will do is it will ask to listen for a method to have some value. For example, if some process is going to take 1 minute, we can make use of this one to wait for 1 minute to get that actual data. So for here I'm going to name it as callback 1 new completable future, and what we'll do is when we get the response we will call callback 1 dot complete. We'll call back we'll say that the callback was completed. But if due to some exception the callback the network call failed, like internet problem, then we have to let the system know that that was an exception. So we can make use of complete exceptionally and pass this error value throwable there. And the similar thing we have to do for the country callback also. So that will be callback to, and here inside the callback to, here inside the second asynchronous callback, we have to tell callback to dot complete once we get the response, and we can call response dot body. And the problem is it is not returning global data, it is returning the country data. So that is important. Then callback to dot complete exceptionally when there is an exception. Okay, so that is more of a boilerplate code than logic, because this is like the syntax of using completable future. We start a callback, we call complete when it completes successfully, we call complete exceptionally when it fails. Okay, now the final data is to get the value from the callback 1 and callback 2. So I'm going to make the one here join. So if you have watched my multi-threading tutorial, or if you know about multi-threading, then you'll know that join means wait until the operation is over. So return the result value when complete. So it can be 1 second, it can be 1 minute, like that. Okay, so we have global data, then we have country data. So callback to dot join, it will be country data. Yes, country data. Now once we have the global data as well as country data, what we simply have to do is to create this wrapper and return it back to the caller. Okay, now we got the country. Let me add a toString method inside this class also. So I am going to press control and alt insert and alt insert toString, and I have prepared the toString method. And once we are here, now we can get the actual data model here. So data model, then we will print s out data model. Let me run the program once more, waiting for the result, and you can see that it has both global data as well as there should be a country data. So there is the both is there, and we are getting the asynchronous result back synchronously here. So that's it, guys. That's the end of this chapter. We talked about a lot of things. We created the project, we created the data fetch API, we created the data provider service, and in the upcoming chapters we will do the rest of the modules. So see you on the next one. Bye.